Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Surgery from the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. I'm Lisa Hadfield-Law and I'm the convener for the College Future Leaders programme. In this episode, I'll be talking to Emma Stapleton, an ENT surgeon in Manchester. She's on College Council and she's the lead for mentoring for the college scheme. We're going to talk mentoring, what it is, what it isn't, how it relates to other relationships like coaching and supervision. We'll be asking questions like, does everyone need a mentor? How much does diversity matter? And how can we structure conversations for maximum impact? We won't necessarily answer the question, but we're hoping you'll find answers yourselves. Hi, Emma. We've both trained as mentors and you've been involved in the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh scheme right from the start. So let's use this short video to share with our colleagues a little bit more about how the college scheme works and what mentoring is all about, because people tend to use the term really interchangeably with coaching, supervision, teaching, proctoring. So a little bit later, we'll probably try and clearly define what mentoring is with our scheme. So can I just start with the question, what is the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh mentoring scheme for?
Great, thank you, Lisa, and thanks for your engagement. It's brilliant to have you on board and to take things forward together. So the college has spent actually some time considering how best to put a mentoring scheme together, and we want it to be effective and sustainable and also responsible. And you've touched on something really important, which is that people use the term mentorship to mean a variety of things. And we know that if we don't quite get it right, it's not going to be effective, sustainable and responsible. So what the college aims to do and is working towards and is currently now implementing is creating a scheme which matches trained mentors with mentees who will, in the first instance, be senior trainees and young consultants who are college members and fellows, in a mentoring programme which has really good guidance, training and governance embedded with it in order to make it effective, sustainable and responsible.
Great. Okay. So let's explore that, the business about the differences, because I think looking back over my career, I've been quite guilty, if guilt is the right word, of referring to anybody who's helped me as a mentor. And that's often been people who've provided amazing opportunities, people who have put their name or financial support behind me, or taught me how to do something, taught me a new skill, coached me. And I've tended to just call everybody a mentor. How would you say mentoring differs from coaching in our scheme?
Yeah, this is a really strategic point that we really need to focus on when we're putting a responsible scheme together, because you're absolutely right, we all use the term mentor or mentoring to use this wide variety of things, and that doesn't mean you're guilty. That's a completely normal thing to do. I do it as well, because actually it's a great compliment, isn't it, if I refer to my my strongest trainer as a mentor. You know, that makes her feel, oh, you know, a mentor with a future colleague. But actually, when we're working within a framework of a scheme where we've got specific goals, we do need to drill down what mentoring actually is. And its definition has morphed over the years. And recently, there are some really nice structures and frameworks, which I know you talk about in one of your other videos. I think it's really important not to confuse it with teaching and supervision, because whilst your surgical teacher or supervisor, the person that teaches you a surgical skill, may well be a mentor to you, mentoring isn't that process. Mentoring is not the learning of facts or the acquisition of skills. It's something quite different. And the best way to think about it is it's a process for empowering the mentee. And the college scheme focuses on development. It's for career development. So it's not necessarily for passing your exams or learning how to do an operation. It's for empowering the mentee to develop their future career in a way that works for them. Now, the other ways you've touched on that can be confused with mentoring are also really, really common. So what we see frequently is that mentoring programs or schemes aren't training mentors to mentor, that they're buddying a more senior colleague with a trainee or a more junior colleague. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is a lovely thing to do, but this isn't mentoring. This is generally for career guidance. And guidance, again, is different from mentoring, because in the guidance process, the more experienced colleague is giving advice, essentially, or doing signposting. Whereas in mentoring, there's more of a sort of a slightly deeper or more personal process of empowering that mentee to I guess, use that guidance and experience to develop it in their own way. And the final way you've mentioned is about patronage or sponsorship. So this support isn't always financial, although it can be. But, you know, we've all done this, haven't we? It's really nice to have some trainees who we offer opportunities for or who we build up. I think that's really entwined with mentorship, but that's not what mentoring is. It's something separate. And so I guess if we are drilling down, we really need to think about mentoring as a process for empowering that mentee. And yes, of course, the mentor uses their experience and their skills, but the theme behind it is a bit different from all those other things.
And I suppose that's making that shift is key to being a really great mentor, because so many of us are used to being supervisors, coaches, providing opportunities, making connections for people. And so learning how to resist the temptation to leap straight in with advice and telling people what to think is tough. I sometimes think about that as the advice monster, and I've had to really work hard to resist leaping in and saving time and being efficient. And I wonder whether for clinicians that's really been an issue, because you've all been so pressed for time dealing with patients, so you've got into a real habit of asking questions very quickly and then making decisions and giving advice on quite limited information. So shifting that from that habit, I think must be, but I've found it hard. Have you found it hard?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So we mentioned earlier about the advice giving monster and mentoring is not about giving advice. Giving advice is fantastic. It's really, really valuable for career progression, but it's not the same as mentoring. Now, to put it the other way around, often my mentees say, well, I want your advice. I want you to tell me what you've done, what worked for you, and I want you to advise me as what you think I should do. And of course, that becomes part of the conversation. And how this fits in with the importance of training mentors is really, really important. Because I certainly remember, you know, loving the idea of mentoring. And when I went on my first mentor training course years ago, being quite surprised that there was this sort of stiff structure to follow. And I thought, oh, well, not only does this limit me, but it also feels a bit clunky. And that's because it's a new skill. It's not what we're already doing. And actually, some useful advice for new mentors or newly trained mentors, I think, is to just become comfortable with the fact that when you first start using a framework for mentoring, it does feel clunky and it does feel a bit awkward. But as you get better, what you end up doing is embedding that framework in a very natural, personal, human conversation. Yeah. So to put that in context, when I have my first meeting with a new mentee, I tell them I'm going to use a framework. I tell them, look, we'll aim to have 3 meetings and there'll be a sort of a vague structure to them. But don't, and then they look a bit shocked, like, oh, I thought I was meeting someone for a very special conversation and now you're going to use a framework. But the reality is, once you get good at this, and if you see a real master of mentoring at work, someone like Nancy Redfern, when you see her doing, it's an absolute art form. Now, I'm not as experienced as Nancy, but I do feel I'm at a stage where I have a very natural, organic conversation with my mentees, but that framework is still in the background. And so we're still structuring a conversation where we're taking them through a process of empowerment and exploring themes rather than delivering career advice, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. So I might feel clunky, and that's a useful word, clunky at first. So for instance, if I fold my arms like that now, that feels great. If you then said to me, oh Lisa, that's really bad for your carpal bones, that you must fold your arms a different way, I can do it, but it takes a bit of thought and it doesn't feel that comfortable, and the temptation is to just go back and assume that that must be better because it feels more comfortable. So for the people who are going to be working with us on the next cohort, getting used to a bit of discomfort whilst we get used to a different approach is going to be just an important part of it. And there may be people who are working with us on the development programme who are not at a point in their career or their life where tolerating that level of discomfort and a different approach is just not for them. So that's okay. People can withdraw at any point and nothing will be lost. But taking a structured approach to those mentor relationships is likely, you use the words sustainable, safe, with appropriate governance. It just will help keep things online, and knowing that it feels uncomfortable at first, but with practice, like with anything, it becomes embedded in what we do and becomes more comfortable. And that probably, Emma, is linked to changing the nature of this program or the delivery of this program to the online world. And most of us, because we've been brought up with face-to-face learning and teaching, we love that because we've polished it, we've got really good at it, it's part of who we are.
Yeah.
So there's a temptation to say, oh, face-to-face is better than online. Having trained as an online teacher, because I had to, because I didn't have the funding to do some of the really important education that was required, and then COVID came, I had to train as an online teacher. And now a huge proportion of the learning and teaching I do is online. And because I've practiced a lot and I've powered through the feeling uncomfortable and thinking, I just hate this, I want to go back to, I know now that it works as well, and in some cases better. Hybrid, no. With some people online and some people in real life, no, that's really hard. But online, you said we want to make this program sustainable. It reduces costs, not just for our organisation, but for everyone else. There's not travelling up to Edinburgh and having to try and take 3 separate events off and paying for accommodation and all of that stuff. It's also more accessible because not everybody is able to just take time away from home and work. They're just not.
Yeah. That was exactly what I was going to add, actually, is this is aimed at sustainability, but accessibility is everything. We've had some really motivated trainee mentors who just haven't been able to commit to face-to-face. Now, I agree 100% with you, actually. I think learning and engagement can be done brilliantly online. If you're experienced using a Zoom platform and know how to drop in and out of separate rooms, it can work really, and it can almost be sort of more intimate and personal than a face-to-face event. I think what you do have at face-to-face events is going for a coffee at break time and just an informal chat, or going for a drink afterwards and making some new contacts. That is really valuable, and you don't always get that with online, but that doesn't mean that we can't have that at some other stage. I mean, if we're forming relationships and working with people in the longer term, hopefully there'll be some time to meet up in real life as well.
Yeah, and we can recreate that online. So if we know that we're going to be doing probably about 8 hours of learning via the learning log, which our next cohort can do whenever they want, wherever they want, at whatever pace they want, and it's just a Word document with embedded lectures like this one, or sessions or demonstrations, and that will be done to create the sort of knowledge foundations, so that when we meet, we're going to do. We're going to practice skills. We're going to have discussions around what's hard, what's difficult, how we avoid problems. And there's no reason that at those live sessions we shouldn't, as we would in real life, have coffee in breakout rooms together, or have a drink that evening for those who can make it. So we can recreate that if that's something that our next cohort would value in terms of bringing them together as a group.
Lovely.
One more thing about who our mentors are likely to come across when they register with the scheme as mentors. What kinds of mentees and reasons have they had to engage with our programme?
In another programme that I'm involved with, we did some research looking at what mentees and mentors' expectations of a mentoring programme are. And you might not be surprised to hear that their expectations extended beyond just mentoring. What we did find was that, firstly, these were not people who were in difficulty. And so I think we really need to move away from the concept of mentoring being a crisis intervention or a process for someone who is struggling, because mentoring is perhaps it is most powerful when it's used for someone who hasn't yet hit that crisis point, who is actually at a crossroads. In fact, this is the moment at which the GMC recommend it in their Good Medical Practice Guideline. They recommend it for people at times of career transition. And so I actually attended a really interesting event a couple of years ago, which was aimed at international doctors, and I spoke about mentoring. And there was a representative from the GMC there who spoke to me afterwards, and she said she loved the way I spoke about mentoring people before they hit a crisis point, mentoring them whilst things are good so that they can develop their career in a positive direction. Anyway, I'm digressing slightly. What we know is that it's useful for everyone, not just for those in trouble, but also that people at different career stages are looking for different things. So what we found when we did that research was that very early career trainees and students are actually not looking for mentoring at all. They're looking for career guidance. And so perhaps a buddying program or a different process altogether, or a group event, is the most effective way to engage them and offer them what it is that they're seeking. When we look at more senior trainees, and especially younger consultants, they are looking for something different. They are often people who are high flyers by virtue of the fact that they are where they are, and they come across challenges which are different, but we do see the same ones again and again. And it's to do with workplace culture or personal confidence or decision making and choices in their own career development. And these might seem like scenarios that every surgeon comes across, but the reality is, as the GMC recommends, these times of career transition are times when true mentoring is really, really valuable, because a skilled mentor can explore that theme with them, can explore where it is they want to be, and can help them find a realistic and effective way forwards. So currently it's for people who are at that later stage of training or early consultant life, at that time of career transition. Actually, as the scheme grows sustainably, we hope we'll be able to roll it out to additional groups who are perhaps looking for something different. This might involve people from particular demographic groups, for example, our international colleagues who have a whole different level of challenge when they come to the UK and have to embed themselves in the UK system with different requirements and different cultures and different pathways. So certainly that would be another group to roll things out to once we are up and running on a really sustainable level. And we need to think about people who are later in their career as well. The challenges don't end when you've got through your first consultant years. Coming towards retirement is also a time of career transition. So ultimately, we hope it'll be relevant to all surgeons. But in the first instance, it is absolutely for those colleagues at that time of career transition.
Great. Okay. So, for instance, I spoke to the surgeon this morning who is having her first baby next week, and interestingly is starting to think about how life is going to change when she returns after her maternity leave.
Yep.
And is planning ahead about how she might make that shift, and recognizing that trying to do that in your own head is quite difficult. And so I was able to then signpost her towards scheme, and it doesn't matter who it doesn't need to be somebody from the same specialty at all. It just needs to be somebody who can ask really illuminating questions designed to I hadn't thought of it. Oh, okay, yeah, that's a really important. So it's not about being with somebody who is expert in the field, either taking maternity leave or being a mother in surgery. That background might be really helpful, but it's about being with somebody who is able to ask really great questions to illuminate the way forward so that she can choose a way forward, but has uncovered perhaps spots she hadn't thought of and different ways of seeing things to make some progress.
Diversity in the programme is essential, and on some level, if we're talking about surgical specialties, it might be better to have a mentor who's not in your surgical specialty, because our worlds are small, and what we know is that people might have things to discuss which are more personal or which they don't really want to speak to somebody in their own specialty about. And so cross-pollination between specialties is absolutely essential. So you're absolutely right that the skill lies with the mentor for exploring the theme. I think we can't completely separate the two either, though. So people who have been through a specific challenge are usually well placed to explore that challenge, but then they also come with their own experience and baggage and biases. And so I've had 2 maternity leaves and now have 2 teenage sons, and if someone comes to me to ask about returning to work after having children, I have to be really careful not to impose my own experience on them, because of course theirs will be different. So yes, you're absolutely right. It's more about the skill of the mentor in exploring those themes responsibly.
Great. Okay, I think that's really useful. We know now about the background to what the college scheme is for and where some of those blurred lines might lie. And what we're going to move on to later is to look more at the framework that we're using for this scheme. There are other alternatives that are really interesting too, but this is the one that I certainly have found most user friendly. So that's the one we're going to use on this program, and we can branch out maybe later once we've learned how to apply a framework to our mentor relationships. Okay, thanks, Emma.
Thank you.